Hello and welcome to a showcase of Gimme Instant Health Bars, where I present to you some features of this asset package. So the most important one is performance, of course. So I have opened the frame debugger, and when you look at how many draw codes we are using for all of the health bars, you can see we are doing a little bit of instancing on the world and so on, but then there's just one draw call for all of the health bars, regardless of the transitions you can see oftentimes, regardless of how much health each turtle has. It's just one draw call. So this is the most important thing and what makes this a very powerful asset. But we don't only want it to be cheap on the GPU, we also want it to be cheap on the CPU. So here I spawned 10,000 cubes that move around. And if you look at the profiler, you can see that the actual time it takes to update all the health bars is around 0.2 milliseconds. And on another thread, there is a job actually updating the health bars. But usually, if you don't use all cores of your CPU, it doesn't affect the main thread, and therefore it doesn't affect the performance at all. And so you can see it is a lightning fast asset. So let me quickly explain the architecture. You have a controller for each health bar material you have, and each controller can have multiple profiles. And each profile is meant to be a set of properties for an enemy or an ally or some unit in your game that has the same texture, the same material. So for example, if you have multiple enemies and they all have the same texture in the health bar, but maybe the color is different, then you have a profile for each different color. So before I explain some of the features, I want to mention that there is a documentation which describes all of them. And I will only focus on the main ones and not on the ones which are, for example, in the advanced mode. So the first thing is that you don't need to draw them instanced. You can also use them without instancing, which I don't know why you would do it, but you can. So you can draw the health bars like they are UI objects, which means they don't have perspective. They are like you would capture them in an orthogonal camera, but you can also draw them as if they were objects in the world. They will act similar to billboards if you press enable this toggle. You will notice that they vanish, and this is not because they actually vanish, it's just because the coordinate systems between screen space and world space are different. So if I then increase this by a lot, then you start to see the actual health bars again. And you also see that they will now scale with the distance of the camera to the actual objects. You can fade the health bars with the distance by simply enabling this toggle. And here I've set the alpha to 0.5 when the distance is more than 100 meters away from the camera. The transition texture is the texture displayed when you lose health. At the moment I didn't set a texture, it is just a white flash that you can see sometimes when a turtle loses health. You can treat the textures as if they were flipbooks in the material, but there is also a scroll speed in the profile. You can define different colors depending on how much health is left in the bar. So for example, if a turtle is getting low on health, the texture has a red tint like defined in this gradient. You can define some margins as you're maybe used to from the UI, so you can do some adjusting of where the texture is going to be displayed. This works for both the foreground and the background texture. So I think I've covered the most important features that most people would use, but there are a lot more, and I think you can see I only scratched the surface of all the things that are possible with this asset. And if you want to find out more, you can have a look at the documentation, which is linked in the asset store description. And with that, we come to my favorite part of this video, which is the end. I have made a lot of marketing videos, but I never like to do them. It is just not a thing a game developer likes to do. Please check out my other assets, check out the documentation, and consider buying the asset. And you can also find me on YouTube, and you can also find me on all sorts of social media platforms. I'm pretty much on every platform. And thanks for watching, and goodbye.